All right, let's put away the paintbrushes for this deep dive, because we're diving into the world of sound art.
Yeah, trading those canvases for soundscapes.
Exactly. And if you've ever thought about turning your love of sound into, an actual career,
Mm-hmm.
this is the episode for you. We're going deep with insights from RoleCatcher articles, career guides, all that good stuff to find out what it really takes to be a sound artist.
And it's so much more than just making music, right?
Right.
I mean, we're talking about creating immersive audio experiences. Like, you could be designing soundscapes for video games.
Oh, absolutely. Those sound effects, they completely pull you in.
Exactly. Or even, like, shaping the emotional impact of a film score.
It's like you're composing an experience, not just a track.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we get into the career advice, let's back up for a sec.
Yeah, good idea.
What exactly is a sound artist, according to RoleCatcher?
Well, they have a really interesting definition. It goes way beyond the technical stuff. They emphasize, like, the intention behind the sound and how it reflects the artist's identity.
So it's about your unique voice, so to speak, as much as it is about the tools you use.
Exactly.
Okay, so less about being a tech whiz in a recording studio.
Right.
And more about using those tools to create something meaningful.
Totally. Think of someone like Janet Cardiff.
Oh, yeah.
She creates these incredible audio walks, right? And it's like these walks transform entire cities into these sonic landscapes.
Wow.
It's the perfect example of tech meeting artistic vision.
And that could take so many forms, right? You could be composing for film,
Mhm.
or, like we said, designing those hyper-realistic sound effects for video games.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher actually breaks down some of those different roles, which I think is super helpful if you're like, okay, but what kind of sound artist do I want to be?
Let's dig into that a bit. What are some of the sound artists' specialties they highlight?
Well, they talk about Foley artists, for example.
Oh, right. Creating those everyday sound effects that, honestly, you don't even notice until they're missing.
Exactly. Footsteps in the snow, the clinking of dishes. It's all about creating that sonic world that feels real.
You'd have to be pretty detail-oriented for that, I imagine.
Oh, for sure. And then there's the more technical side, like the sound designers and audio engineers.
Right, the ones making sure it all actually sounds good.
Yes. And RoleCatcher points out how those roles are kind of merging, especially with software like Ableton Live and Pro Tools becoming so central to the work.
So you need to be fluent in, like, the language of sound and the language of software.
100%. And they actually list some of those industry standard software programs. Super useful if you're just starting out.
Give us the rundown. What are some of the big names that aspiring sound artists should be familiar with?
Okay, so besides Ableton and Pro Tools, they mention WeWise, which is huge for game audio.
Okay.
Then there's Reaper, which is more budget-friendly for recording and editing.
Nice.
Oh, and they even touch on Max MSP, which is more for those interested in interactive sound installations.
So finding the right software is kind of like finding the right instrument. It depends on what you want to create.
I like that. Yeah, and that's what's great about RoleCatcher's approach. They get that this field is super diverse.
You're not just stuck on one path. There's a whole bunch of ways to express yourself with sound.
Exactly.
And speaking of finding your niche, let's shift gears and talk about the job outlook in part 2.
Okay, sounds good.
Because as much as we love talking about the creative side, I'm curious how those skills translate into, paying work.
Yeah, passion doesn't always equal a paycheck, unfortunately.
Sadly true.
But RoleCatcher actually paints a pretty optimistic picture of the job market, so there's hope. They actually pull out some numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics,
Yeah.
and they're projecting like an 8% growth
Wow.
for sound engineering technicians
Okay.
through 2029.
8%. That's got to be good, right?
That's way faster than average.
Okay, so there's actually a demand for these skills. It's not just like a pipe dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And RoleCatcher, they kind of break down like why this has happened. And it's not just one industry, right? I mean, obviously video games are huge right now.
Oh, yeah.
With the soundscapes and how immersive they are.
Oh, absolutely. You think about a game like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yes.
Where, like, even the sound of your horse's hooves changes depending on the terrain.
Exactly.
It's like next level.
It's insane. And it's not just games.
Oh.
RoleCatcher talks about virtual reality.
Okay.
Location-based entertainment.
Wow.
Even like the podcasting world that we're in.
So there are a lot of avenues for this kind of work.
There are tons.
So it does seem like this is a field where, that classic advice of follow your passion
Right.
could actually lead to a paycheck.
It definitely can,
Yeah,
but
totally.
RoleCatcher's not naive to like the realities. They're like, it's competitive.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's lay music sound.
Right. People are passionate about it.
Passionate people.
So it's going to be competitive.
So how do you stand out if there's all these other people who love this stuff?
Yeah.
What are some tips that RoleCatcher gives?
One thing that they really emphasize is hands-on experience.
Okay.
So internships.
Okay. So getting your foot in the door early.
Even if they're unpaid at first,
Right.
just getting that experience.
So like recording studios, maybe some of those like indie game companies that are popping up.
Exactly. They even suggest like volunteering at music festivals
Oh, interesting.
to get that live sound experience,
That's
or
it.
reaching out to local podcasters
Oh, cool.
who might need help with editing.
Yeah.
Just anything to build your skills and your network.
So it's not necessarily about like the dream job right away. It's about kind of like getting those experiences.
Exactly. Building that foundation.
Okay. And while you're building those connections, what about like showcasing your work?
Oh, they love a good online portfolio.
Right, like your sonic resume.
Yes.
But what should that look like? I mean, everyone's working with sound.
Right. And they actually give really specific recommendations.
Okay, good.
They're like, it's not about just throwing everything you've ever done online.
Right.
They're big on quality over quantity.
So like your best stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they even suggest tailoring it
Okay.
to the type of sound art you want to do.
So if you love like game audio, you really highlight that.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. So someone can like scroll through and be like, okay, this is clearly this person's strength.
Yes, exactly.
So portfolio is huge. But besides that, what else can aspiring sound artists do to kind of like get noticed?
Networking.
It's always networking.
Always.
But what does that look like in the world of sound art?
Well, what's cool is RoleCatcher actually has tools for that
Oh, really?
built into their platform
Okay.
to help you manage your contacts, connect with potential employers.
So it's not just giving advice, they're like actually facilitating those
100%.
connections.
It's pretty neat. And they also emphasize industry events,
Okay.
workshops, even online forums.
So there's that mix of like online presence,
Yes,
but then also like showing up,
exactly.
putting yourself out there.
You got to hustle.
So it's about making those connections.
Yeah. And they also talk about mentorship,
Oh, that's huge.
which I think is so valuable.
Yeah, having someone who can like guide you,
Yes.
give you advice.
It's like having a sonic sensei.
I love that. Okay, so you've got the skills, you've built your network, you're maybe even finding a mentor.
Right.
But this field's constantly changing.
Always.
Technology is evolving, so how do you keep up?
Always.
Let's talk about that in part 3. So we've talked about skills you need, the job outlook, how to network, even how to find a mentor.
Right.
But I'm curious about like the actual career trajectory.
Yeah.
Is it just like a straight line to the top, or like are there steps along the way?
It's definitely not a straight line.
Good to know.
RoleCatcher. They lay out these different stages of
Okay.
a sound artist's career.
Let's talk about that. Where do most people start?
They call it like the assistant sound artist,
Okay, makes sense.
which is pretty self-explanatory.
So you're learning the ropes. You're probably doing a lot of like grunt work.
You're assisting on projects,
Okay.
maybe doing a lot of equipment setup,
Yeah.
file organization.
Okay, so not the glamorous stuff, but like important to learn.
Totally. But RoleCatcher really emphasizes
Yeah.
that even in those tasks, you're
You're-
learning.
You're watching.
Exactly. You're in the studio with these experienced people.
Yeah, you're like soaking it all up.
Exactly. And you might even get to like contribute little bits
Okay.
to these bigger projects.
So it's almost like an apprenticeship in a way.
Yeah, totally. They
Yeah.
even talk about things like mastering audio files.
Okay, so it's not just like hitting export,
No, it's understanding levels,
that
compression.
art form in itself.
Exactly. They even mention things like
Yeah.
organizing sound libraries.
Oh, see, that sounds kind of boring. But
Right, but if you need to find that sound
yes,
immediately.
got to know where it is.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're starting out, you're in the assistant role. When do you get to actually be creative?
That's where the next stage comes in.
Okay.
You graduate to just
Yeah.
sound artist.
No more assistant?
No more assistant, you've made it.
You're legit.
And RoleCatcher talks about how this stage
Yeah.
is really about finding your niche.
Okay, so you've got the basic skills,
Right.
but now, like, what kind of sound artist do you want to be?
Exactly. Maybe you're really good at Foley. Or you're super into the technical stuff
Okay.
and you want to like really push the boundaries of sound design.
So it's about specialization.
Yes.
Okay, makes sense.
And they say a lot of this stage is
Yeah.
experimentation, freelance work.
So a lot of hustle, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're not going to lie about that.
Right?
They're like, you're going to be juggling projects.
Managing your own time.
Exactly. So those skills are super important.
Okay, so you're freelancing, you're figuring out your niche.
Or
What's next?
the senior sound artist.
Ooh, senior.
You've got some years under your belt.
You've paid your dues.
You've paid your dues.
What are you doing at that level?
This is where, like, the big projects come in.
Okay.
Like, you're talking, like, AAA video games,
Wow.
big film projects.
Congrats.
And at this level, you're not just, like, creating the sounds, you're leading teams.
Okay.
You're managing budgets.
So you're like a manager too.
You have to be.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and RoleCatcher really emphasizes
Yeah.
how important communication is.
Okay.
Collaboration, being able to, like, inspire your team.
It's almost like you're the conductor
Yes.
of an orchestra.
Exactly.
Okay, that's amazing. But what's the final stage?
The lead sound artist.
Yeah.
And this is, like, next level.
These are the pioneers, the people who are pushing the boundaries.
Yes. Think like spatial audio,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
interactive soundscapes.
It's not even just about like entertainment anymore. It's like art.
It's art, and it can even be used to, like, address social issues,
Wow.
environmental issues.
That's amazing.
It's really cool.
So really, the takeaway is if you are passionate about sound, if you love music, if you love
Yeah.
the way things sound, this could be a really incredible career path.
Absolutely.
There are so many different options, and it seems like the industry is only growing.
It's booming.
So if you're intrigued, definitely check out RoleCatcher. We'll link to them in the show notes. They've got tons of resources to help you learn those skills, build your portfolio, and really find your place in the world of sound art.
Exactly.
So no matter where you are in your sonic journey, there's always more to discover, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next lead sound artist, changing the world with your sonic creations.